Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Health Bridge. I'm Dr. Sarah Gottfried, and I'm here with Dr. Pedram Shojai. Hello, Pedram.
Hey, Sarah. Hi, everybody.
Hey, so we have an amazing guest today, Mark David. I am so excited to have you on the show, Mark. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. I love you guys, and no place else I'd rather be right now.
Oh,
it's
well,
maybe a really warm beach somewhere where I can paddleboard.
Yeah, we were just talking before we hit record about being in the ocean, being in warm weather, and how it makes the body morph, right? Maybe we should start by unpacking that. Like, what happens when you go to the beach and, get some of that really good vacation happening?
I think each of us probably has this strange and fascinating genetic X factor, such that when we mix in the right few ingredients, that we just explode into our truest self. Sometimes it's as simple as I'm eating the right diet, I'm with the right person, I'm in the right place. Sometimes it means, okay, I'm doing the right physical activity. For me, it's the ocean and being in warmth and eating good food. And you give me that, and there's some strange alchemical thing happens. I could easily go and write a book that says everybody should go to the beach like I do and eat exactly what I do when I get there. And you too will look great, feel wonderful. And it's like each of us has our different special magic medicine. That's what I think it is.
It's funny because so I was with you a couple weeks ago. We were in Boulder, and I'm sitting here having mountain envy. Like, oh my God, life would be so much greater if I lived here with the fresh air and the skiing and this, that, and the other. And then here you are, a resident of this place that I kind of like aspire to live in, but it'll never happen because my wife is afraid of the cold. And you're like, dude, I went to the beach for like 3 days, and I could noticeably see this like glow about you, and like things changed. So, just before we got online, I'm like, wow, so why don't you live at the beach? And it's just one of those funny things about humans and our circumstances. Is it the beach, or is it the guy who went to the beach being different?
I think it's a great question, and I think it's the billion-dollar question. Maybe yes to both and all of that. I also think that, talking about health for a moment, there's an interesting a facet that we don't always think about, which is kind of, I guess I want to call it fate. Fate often has us do things, be in places, be with people, or be in situations that might not be to my optimal choosing. And yet here I am. So, it's not my optimal choosing to be in front of a computer 7-8 hours a day. But quite frankly, I'm in front of a computer 7-8 hours a day. Never thought I would be that guy. And yet, and that's a conservative estimate. And yet I will say that being in front of a computer makes my life amazing. It connects me with you guys. It connects me with, our many hundreds of thousands of tribe members and followers, for our teaching organization. It's magic. It does these amazing things. And then there's the part of me that's sitting down, moaning and groaning. I don't want to be in front of a computer. I want to be, leading backpack trips in the wilderness. And fate has me doing something else. I feel healthier when I surrender to my fate, I guess is what I want to say.
Oh, okay. I totally love this. I love that we kind of didn't go to the place immediately, Mark, of, asking you about your best-selling books and about this amazing institute that is teaching people about the psychology of eating, because this is such I think, a complicated and rich topic. One thread I'm hearing from you is about love the one you're with, kind of this surrender and acceptance of your circumstances, and, just not fighting it, not resisting it in a way that kind of stirs up the wrong alchemical reactions in your body. Mm-hmm. And then this piece of alchemy, like I want to tease out a little bit the alchemy of Mark David on the beach And, some of I tend to go to those physical explanations, as you well know, Mark, of, okay, well, you're grounding, you're walking on the beach, you're in the salt water, you're earthing, and that we know helps to reset the adrenal function. You also, I imagine, are just, creating this amazing coherence between the halves of your nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's I see these physical pieces, but there's also the alchemistry that I think is important to maybe dive into a little bit deeper. Can you say something about it? Because I feel like this is an essential part of your message, like especially the slow down diet, which I have by my bedside. So can you talk a little bit more about the alchemistry and also how to love the one you're with, how to really make peace with your fate?
Lots of brilliant questions in there. So yeah, we're on the same page. I love, dropping into Nerd Central and detailing the science of why it is the way it is. So, I'm always about, simple science. I love simple, beautiful science because oftentimes simple science is the most effective. And yes, so when I'm in certain environments, so if I'm at the ocean and I'm on the ocean, I'm in the water, I'm on a surfboard, I'm on a paddleboard, I am in a physiologic relaxation response like none other. And, as I've kind of dived into, well, what does a physiologic relaxation response even mean, for goodness sake? So it means I'm relaxed and meditative. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. But there's a fantastic assortment of metabolic empowerments that happen when we relax, because when we relax, things unfold. Higher wisdom is able to come through, my prefrontal cortex. It's like those parts of my brain are more able to light up. We can channel wisdom. We can channel creativity when we're in a relaxed state as opposed to running from the lion, so to speak. I'm not inventing a great work of art when I'm running for my life. So there's certain elements in the meal that taste good for you or taste good for me. So there's certain elements in the meal that help my system relax. And when that happens, we know that most of healing, maintenance and repair of body tissue happens in a relaxation response. So now my body has this opportunity to kick into its, fuller self-expression. I also think, oftentimes when we talk about health, we're really talking about the nutrients. We're talking about the vitamins and the minerals and the heart rate and the blood pressure and all the, markers of inflammation, etc., which is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And I want to say, and what about beauty? What about when your eyes behold something that for you occurs as beautiful? The ocean to me is beautiful. So when I encounter beauty and really absorb it, I am changed. And that could be stepping into my office. I have some great art. I have beautiful rocks. I look at that beauty and there's a shift. And we don't always think of beauty as being nutritional, but wow. So, a big piece of this really for me is beauty. And that's a part of the alchemical nature, I think, of what can happen to us, because one can eat all the right foods, do all the right things, but if I'm in my head and if I'm in my mind and I'm not experiencing the pleasure of eating, the pleasure of movement, the beauty of my own life, the graciousness with which, the universe has presented itself to me, giving me all this abundance, man, I am missing some vital nutrients if I don't really absorb that. I have no idea if I answered your question.
You totally did.
I think you opened up something that's really interesting, and let's get a little personal here about it, because I've been saying for a long time that I'm going to get through this movie launch and then take December off and relax. So I have like December to look forward to. Sarah's no stranger to deadlines, as are you. Book launches and all this kind of stuff. So you have this like chunk time of like super compressed time and like, aggressive work, and then you get your dessert, right? And so how much of that, like the permission to unwind, do you feel is part of that beauty? Because I mean, I could look out the windows right here in my office and there's beauty everywhere. Wow, look at that tree. It's amazing. But when I'm stuck in my launch mode or movie mode or business mode, my eyes might see that tree, but my eyes won't stop to register the beauty. And that's, I think, part of the crime of of modernity is we are driving so fast we can't see out the window to notice how beautiful the place is that we're just blazing through. So, Mike, I guess my question is, how can we take sips of that beauty every single day so it's not like, oh my God, 6 months from now I'm going to Maui and that's gonna do it for me?
Yeah. What a great question. I think that's the crux of the matter. You mentioned our modern world, and we have such a different relationship with time. And time and how we're perceiving it is so crucial, I think, to our experience of life, our health, our happiness. Back to simple science, back to eons ago in evolutionary time, when we're running around the environment, evolving, we develop this survival response, a stress response. The lion is chasing me. So when the lion is chasing me, nature knows, we got about 2 to 3 minutes, most. Something's going to happen. Somebody's going to win this fight. Lion's going to eat you. You're going to run away. You're going to defeat the lion. 2 to 3 minutes at most. So time is compressed in a survival response. Nature is driving your clock so quickly. So when I'm in that stress response, I am desensitized to pleasure. I am desensitized to beauty. I don't give a damn about my future. I'm thinking about the now. I don't even care about my wife and kids. Yeah, I might think, God, I want to survive, so I don't get killed here. But time is compressed, and everything is telling my nervous system, you are running out of time. Do smart things, do fast things, do strong things. You're running out of time. So, to your point, here we are in the modern world, and everything is telling us that we're running out of time. You don't have enough time. Time is so valuable, but then it becomes a physiologic event because we're in stress. Cortisol, number one stress hormone, we love it, it's great, it does all these wonderful things, produce it in excess, it skews our time perception. So right now, if I could take a hypodermic needle filled with cortisol and inject it into anybody listening to this, within less than a minute, you're going to go, oh my God, like, why am I wasting my time here? This is like, I got to go do this. Cortisol speeds up our time perception. So we have to kind of, I think, stand up to that and say, okay, I'm going to take my perception back into my own hands. I'm going to re-skew time perception in a way that is more in alignment with who we are as human beings. So I kind of think it's our job to slow down time. And that's maybe one of the most amazing things we can do. Because when it happens naturally, oh, I was with her, I was with him, and time just slowed down. Okay, well, that kind of happened. But we slow down time by meditating. We slow down time just by noticing and tuning into one of our senses. Just by looking out the window and looking at a tree, I can slow down time if I focus on it. And from there, I will shift into a relaxation response, which is the optimum state of digestion, assimilation, healing, connection, taking in, learning. So, yeah, let's time shift more.
I totally love this, Mark. And it's, I always feel like I get to such a deep place with you very rapidly. It's just, I think, part of being in conversation with you. And I really want to honor that. I appreciate it so much. I was just helping my daughter who's homesick from school today with a Native American book report. And there's a really sweet exercise in this book report where she is to pull out some of the Native American values of the story that she's reading. Things like respect for the earth, generosity, courage, fortitude. And as you talked about, injecting one of our listeners or all of our listeners with cortisol and how that causes this time compression and just kind of this false sense of urgency. It just made me think about the courage and fortitude that it requires to have this as a daily practice, to reclaim time. I feel like this is also a central meme of the slow down diet. And I maybe want to connect the dots with you so that you can talk a bit about how this applies to food. Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to say that Pedram and I have been talking quite a bit about wealth. Not the usual concept of wealth, financial security, money that you have in the bank, but time wealth. And I think this is such an interesting idea because I feel like this is the epidemic that we're up against. Yes, cortisol is way too high and it causes this time compression. It can become this dark lord of your body. And it's, and time wealth is what I keep coming back to as a way of maybe reclaiming some of these things that are rightfully ours.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's what a beautiful conversation. I want to make sure I don't lose some of the ingredients that you mentioned. We're talking about time wealth right now, reclaiming that. You mentioned the word courage in there. I think that's an important piece in this conversation and in answering your question, because on one level, it feels like we are in a battle to reclaim natural time. And it is kind of a battle from the standpoint that the world, culture, Western culture, industrialized culture, pushes the pedal to the metal on the clock. We value speed. Oh yeah, you got a high-speed internet connection. Fast cars, fast women. We value speed. We don't realize how much speed has become this deity. And it's a strange, illusory kind of thing that we worship. Yes, speed is fun when it's fun. When I'm going down the roller coaster, that's fun. But you can't live your life on a roller coaster. It doesn't quite work. And nature changes speeds up on us all the time. But it tends to move kind of slow. It tends to move a little slow. You want to get from here to there? It tends to move a little slow. You want night to come? Well, you might have to wait a few hours. You want the sun to rise? There ain't nothing you could do but wait and be a little patient. I think it takes courage to reclaim our time, particularly in a world where we are under a lot of economic pressure. We're under pressure to make money. We're under pressure to raise our family. How do I make all this happen? Oh my God, there's so many moving pieces. The kids, the work, the money. And there's a lot of stressors that we each have or that the world is experiencing that we absorb. And who has time for all this nonsense? You got to save the world, save yourself. You got to exercise. You got to eat. Like, who's got time for this? I don't. There's a conundrum. So there's a certain amount of courage. Play with the word courage for a second. The root words of courage, it's Latin and Indo-European, cor, heart, age, agni, fire, warmth of heart, fire in the heart. There's a certain kind of warmth that we need to go, it's such a soulful thing to find a little bit of time. It's such a soulful thing when you drop in with your kid. Both of you, we're all parents. There's these timeless moments that you have with your kid that might be 10 seconds. That's worth an eternity. So it's that kind of time shifting that I think we can all do. Because your kids give it to you. Maybe nature gives it to you. Maybe listening to your favorite song does it for you. So I think we could reclaim time in these homeopathic dosages that really give us a lot. Those little homeopathic dosages can then give us, I think, a lot of the energy and momentum that we need to be in a world that is kind of high speed right now.
God, man. So you guys understand why we love this guy. Mark, I want to talk about that needle filled with the cortisol that we talked about metaphorically shooting people, because I think people get that needle a few times a day. It's like, hey, Ebola's coming to get you. ISIS is taking over the Middle East and they're in towns that you've never heard of, but panic, right? The web server is down. Your kid just got suspended at school. And so we are all getting injected with these cortisol needles psychologically all the time. And Sarah and I have spent a lot of time in a number of shows talking about, what to eat, what not to eat, how food can be, medicine, or how food can be poison, and all these types of things around food. And you have such a unique and lovely perspective around that. In terms of how the psychology of eating and how the crazy kind of time compressed modern world is kind of washing up on the beach of how we interface with food and our own nourishment. So I'd love to connect up this problem with eating with this delicious conversation about time and compression and presence, because that's, I think, one of the most powerful things you've brought to the meme, and it's really a conversation that everyone needs to be having.
So yeah, thank you for that segue there, and for those words of honor. So let's just say, eat this, don't eat that, good nutrition is important, et cetera, and put that over here. Yes, that is a supremely important conversation that is key on this planet right now. We need a better food chain. We need to ingest the kind of substances. We can kind of noodle with that all day. Is it vegan? Is it vegetarian? Is it paleo? What's going on? Fermented? Raw? Cooked? Okay. Put that over here for a second. Let's all agree to disagree that we don't have all the details down there. What I think we can all agree on, that we don't generally talk about, which is, a big piece of my work, and that is the body has to be in the ideal state to take in all the good food that you've decided is good for you. So, yeah, you can have a car, but how's that car dealing with the fuel that you're putting into it? Is it burning that fuel well? Is it a fuel-efficient car? Some cars get 7 miles to the gallon. Some get 50 or 60 miles to the gallon. We could probably invent cars that are getting thousands of miles to the gallon, or don't even need that gallon of gas. My point is the body has to be in the optimum state of digestion and assimilation, ideally, to accept all the wonderful food that you're feeding it. It just so happens that nature invented us in such a way that the optimum state of digestion and assimilation happens to be the physiologic relaxation response. We are optimally designed as nutritional beings to be in the relaxation response, parasympathetic nervous system dominance. When your parasympathetic nervous system is firing, that means you are fully digesting and metabolizing a meal, which for a lot of people sounds counterintuitive. But wait a second, I'm all hyped up right now. I'm all anxious and in a rush. I must be a lean, mean, calorie burning machine. Maybe for a few people here and there. But the average person, you ask them, hey, what happens when you eat under anxiety or stress? And they will tell you, oh, my stomach feels heavy, I feel queasy, maybe I get heartburn. Well, yes, because in a full-blown stress response and full-blown sympathetic nervous system dominance, your digestion is in complete and total shutdown. And for good reason, because when you're running from the lion and you are in a full-on survival response, you don't need to be digesting your Fruit Loops. You want all your metabolic energy going into survival, going into fighting or fleeing. Makes perfect sense. Well, the brain does not distinguish between a real or an imagined stressor. So I could be sitting here at home and everything is wonderful, but if I'm thinking about the guy that did me wrong 20 years ago, or if I'm in an anxious rush, or I'm worried about my website, or worried about my launch, or worried about whatever, the body can go into some kind of stress response, which will mean some level of stress-induced digestive shutdown, which will mean nutrient excretion. So, I mean, think of it in those simple terms. I just have to tell you guys, United States of America, we have one of the highest rates of osteoporosis in the world. We also have the second highest rate of calcium consumption in the world. We're consuming more calcium than any other nation on earth, except I think it's Norway or Finland. And yet we have one of the highest rates of osteoporosis. What's going on? Bottom line is we're excreting, we're pissing away a lot of minerals. We're pissing away a lot of calcium, a lot of phosphorus, a lot of magnesium due to stress, due to other factors in the environment, in the diet. So bottom line is here we have all this nutrition coming in, but we have to be in the right state, and that requires some rigor. It requires a little bit of commitment. It requires, I think, us being on, don't tell anybody I'm saying this, but more of a spiritual path around our own life.
He said it. He said it.
Another closet spiritualist. Oh man.
Right. It's like make it your practice to be in this world in a way that works, so you can leave it a better place, be a better person for your kids, be an example, and improve upon the chaos that's here, because we're in some chaos.
Mark, I want to ask you about maybe some extreme versions of this sympathetic dominance and some of the things that I see in my practice, and just maybe riff with you a little bit about the way out or the solution. So I just taught my Detox online, and I had a number of people who were talking about how they were eating the right foods, but they were binging, especially at night.
On the detox.
On the detox. So they would binge on sweet potatoes with ghee. They would binge on even greens. And, they would take this nutrient-dense food and they would binge, which tells me about the state of that person, kind of the physiologic state, which I believe is kind of along the lines of what you're describing, kind of a sympathetic dominant, and eating maybe to soothe or for some other reason besides hunger. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering if you could unpack that for us. And some people call this food addiction, other people call it disordered eating. There's lots of labels out there. I just want to kind of cut through that and just have an honest conversation about it.
Sure. Great question. I love to take these things on a more case-by-case basis, even though there's always some wonderful, general guidelines here. I think one thing that happens on a cleanse is that oftentimes I think the body becomes aware of how nutrient deprived it is. So I'm always looking for the reason why someone would do a behavior that seems unwanted, aberrant, or silly. So there's always an interesting physiological or psychological reason, or both. So a lot of people will go on a cleanse, and when you go on a cleanse, really you're giving the body an opportunity to do a reset. You're giving the body an opportunity to let go of a bunch of toxic nonsense so it can start to hear itself. If I was constantly screaming stupid nonsense in your ear, you wouldn't be able to think. You wouldn't be able to have an interesting thought in your mind because you're hearing all this nonsense. But as soon as you're in quiet, then, oh, wow, who am I? What's going on in here? So as soon as we take away some of the toxicity that we're dumping into the body, a lot of bodies respond by, oh my goodness, I am starving. So it makes sense that we're going to want to binge on a healthy smoothie, on the ghee, on the whatever, because the body on a certain level is hungry. It really is hungry. So that's one piece of it. And I'm not saying it's the piece, but it's something to consider, something to understand. I think another piece of that is that when we're on a cleanse, we're in an interesting psycho-emotional experience, because you're not just cleansing your body. I mean, if you look at the history of cleansing, which in part is the history of fasting, and you look at some of the earliest references to fasting, which you'll find in the Old Testament and the New Testament, which you'll find in various, traditional cultures around the globe. The prophets of old didn't go out into the wilderness and fast to look good in a bikini and to get rid of heavy metals in their system. It's not why they did it. Native Americans went into the wilderness and they fasted so they can have a vision. They fasted so they can get in alignment with Great Spirit to find out, who am I? Why the heck am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? What's important? Now, in that fasting process, you're letting go of food. When you let go of food, you let go of an activity that takes a lot of energy. what's going on in the digestive system is impacting the mind. So when I have too much food in my belly, I'm pulling energy there. I'm a couch potato. So when you let go of food, some interesting things can happen. So on a cleanse, what I'm trying to say here is if we don't give airtime to the part of me that needs to explore me, that needs to explore something bigger. Maybe it's my attachment to food. Maybe it's my the ways that I navigate discomfort. Because a lot of us, as soon as we experience discomfort, give me something. Give me the pacifier. The pacifier for a lot of people is food. The pacifier for a lot of people is media. It's the computer. It's online. It's gambling. It's sex. It's drugs. Whatever it is. We have hard addictions. We have soft addictions. So I think the cleansing process puts us face to face with who am I? How do I regulate not only my metabolism, but my emotional metabolism? Oh, I tend to reach for these comforts. Let me see if I can breathe through that a bit. Let me see if I can take some deep breaths and go, wait a second, just pause. Pause before you reach for that pacifier. Pause before you reach for that substitute, that whatever it is that's going to take me out of my momentary discomfort. Because when we move through our discomfort, there's a victory in there that really makes a big difference. And that helps us, I think, grow as humans, as spiritual humans, grow in character, grow in strength, just grow on a lot of levels.
I think that
did I answer the question at all?
Absolutely
you did. There's so many nuggets in there. I mean, I'll start with the aversion to pain. That seems like a really big thing in Western culture is we move away from pain instead of moving into it and being like, okay, what is this discomfort? Why am I feeling this? What is the lesson in this? And all the wonderful kind of spiritual gifts that are on the other side of that. And I love the fact that you mentioned how it's hard to answer this without kind of an individual case, because I mean a lot of times someone is dislodging heavy metals and they're binding to the bones, right? And now the body's saying get me calcium because all this stuff is on its way out. A lot of times someone who doesn't excrete well, it's like you're taking the garbage to the side of the road but there's no garbage truck showing up, and so it's just amassing in the road. And so it's a complicated thing, but there's something about the puritanical nature of American culture, right? Where it's like the Godfather spends the week, whacking people, and then he goes and goes to church and asks for forgiveness, and like this whole concept of how we cleanse is this real kind of up and down, black and white thing. And I'd love to explore that a little bit more with you, just because the ancients didn't do it for those reasons, as you illustrated so well. But like now, it's people consider like it's almost synonymous with a diet. Like, hey, I've put on some weight, I need to cleanse. And that's just not what a cleanse is. So I'd love for you to tease that out a little bit more, because I see that a lot in our practice.
Yeah. I think it's the side effect of our very powerful and well-articulated material worldview. If I see the world as material, if I see the world as chemistry, if I see the world as nutrients, then cleansing to me will be about nutrition, nutrients, toxins, get it out of my system and fix my cells, lose the weight. I did the right mechanical thing. And there's the level where that's all true and it can work. And there's a level where it doesn't work. There's a level where the mind is impacting the body. There is a level where I've noticed, I spent so many years doing, cleansing retreats on so many different levels. It's a fascinating process. I've noticed people who they can be on a long-term cleansing program and their body just hangs on. They don't lose weight. There are people, and this is wild, you'll see this in medical fasting programs. People are not eating for a week, and they'll gain a pound. And it's physiologically impossible. And they won't let go until we let go of the next thing that needs to be let go of. I think there's an invisible architecture, there's an invisible cue, there's an invisible line of things that we need to kind of check off the list. And when we cleanse, we're putting ourselves in this process of saying, okay, you're making this affirmation that you're going to detox. And what is it that actually needs to be detoxed? So I might have heavy metals in my system. I might very well have that. But first and foremost, I might need to detox my negativity. First and foremost, I might need to detox the fact that I'm still mad at my father 40 years later and carry that around with me every day. I might need to detox the fact that I was divorced 20 years from now, but I'm still blaming him or her. Yeah. And those to me can be toxins that are front and center. And oftentimes when you release an emotional toxin, when you release a mental toxin that isn't serving us, it catalyzes the metabolic process. It catalyzes something physiologic. We don't have a well-articulated science for this. I'm speaking observationally, you know. And in that detox process, are we creating the right set and setting for detox to really happen? Because a lot of people go into detox thinking, I have to shed pounds, I have to shed pounds. There's a secret agenda. The secret agenda is often around weight, or the secret agenda is I'm afraid of illness. I don't want to be sick, I don't want to die. I don't want to have some morbid illness. So we're oftentimes driven by fear in the detox. And when you're detoxing, whatever we're thinking, feeling, believing, doing gets magnified because we're putting ourselves in this sensitized state. So all of a sudden, I'm in contact with my fear of body fat. I'm in contact with my fear of disease. And if we don't see that, manage that, look at that in the mirror and go, do I need to let that go? That toxic experience tends to magnify itself and create more stress and less let go. Those are some of my thoughts there.
Oh my gosh, this is such good stuff. And it's I want to come back to a through line that you mentioned early on in our show, Mark, about how the repair, the healing happens in the relaxed state. So in the parasympathetic nervous system where you can rest and digest. I also really love this idea that you suggested that I think you're also talking about with the last comment of pausing before the pacifier and developing that witness self, kind of developing a little bit of objectivity, like a little bit of space between the I want the sweet potato or, whatever fear is kind of driving that I want the pacifier. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the ways that you teach people to pause? Because yeah. I think that's such an important, actionable possibility for our listeners.
Yeah.
And I just want to expand on it and really offer that to those who are listening.
Beautiful question. Let me just give one quick piece of background on the beauty of pausing. First, to look at why we wouldn't want to pause. One of the reasons why we don't want to pause and we want to keep going is that humans are conditioned, many of us, for instant gratification. And that instant gratification conditioning comes from infancy. It comes from childhood. Because the way the nervous system is developed at that point, that's what we know. When you're crying, screaming, little baby is crying and screaming, it can't say, hey, mommy, let me tell you what's going on. I got a little rash over here. I'm actually hungry. The light is really bright. I need a little... No, the kid is screaming its brains out because that's what it knows how to do. And then what you know how to do as a parent is to hold it and maybe give it some food or give it some titty, give it some milk, give it something. Instant gratification. I scream, I yell, I get something. I feel better. And until we evolve that. So life, in a lot of ways, consists of evolving that. We are learning delayed gratification as young people. When mommy or daddy says, no, you can't have all that sugar. You can't have this. You can't have it now. We're eating that for dessert. It's actually not your dinner. It comes at the dessert time. So we're learning how to delay gratification. That's not easy. As kids, we all dealt with that. Wait a second, this is too hard. Just give me the drugs now. Come on, stop it. So as adults, we have to evolve that. We have to mature. We have to grow. And one of the great ways to do that, meditation teaches us to pause, for goodness sake. It's a pause in your life. It's a pause in your day. It's a pause in all the nonsense that we do to just say, okay, here's me. Now, on a practical level, with food, one of the great practices, it's so simple and so profound, is to literally slow down with meals, is to literally take more time for meals. Now, measure how much you take to eat breakfast, time how much it takes you to eat lunch and dinner. For a lot of people, they're literally eating in 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. So add on double. Instead of 3 minutes at breakfast, do 6. Anyone can have 3 more minutes for breakfast or 5 more minutes for lunch. And when we add that time, here we are time shifting now. We're making an affirmation. As we slow down, the body is better able to enter into a relaxation response because slow is the speed of relaxation. Relaxation has a speed. Survival moment running from the lion has a speed. Survival moments require fast. Relaxation requires slow. It takes intentionality to create slow. So if I agree I'm going to take more time for my meals and actually eat slow. Now, a lot of people say, oh, chew your food 50 times. And like, no, just eat sensually. Okay, so chewing a food, interesting practice, and it's useful. It could be mechanical, but there's a soulful place where if I slow down, as soon as you slow down, we can start to take in sensation. And when you start to take in sensation, how does this taste? Taste is an intelligence. How does this feel? Oh, feeling is an intelligence. How is this feeling in my body? Oh, so I'm registering sensation, and that information is actually interesting. The mind gets more curious. Oh, I ate this food 15 minutes ago, and now I'm feeling congested. Connection. That's interesting. So slow allows for wisdom. Lao Tzu, Tao Te Ching had a beautiful line. He said, the serene and the tranquil set the rhythm of the world. The rhythm of the world is not set by the guys who are moving at the highest speed. The serene and the tranquil set forth the rhythm of the world. It's hard to believe that because fast is so sexy. It's so cool. It is so seductive. Eating your meal fast seems like it's practical. Get that out of the way so I can go and do all the important stuff. But what can be more practical than nourishing the body in a way that the body is best nourished so you can reset it, feed it, give it what it wants, feel the beauty of it, feel the celebration of it. It's not just a nutritional act, it's a personal act, it's an emotional act, it's beautiful. When we take more time, that can happen.
It's funny, we talked about this in a show just recently about peacetime economy versus wartime economy. You just figure we're all like these soldiers in like a foxhole, just like shoving some food in our mouth just so we can like run back and start doing our own thing. And that is not the diet, the rest and digest diet that gets us to the next level. I mean, that is kind of where everyone is living. And it's like the walls are always caving in. We got a lot of family in Europe, and those guys think we're absolutely nuts. They savor their meals. They sit down, they enjoy it. They sit around each other. And, it helps that and I have this right now. It's just starting. We have a new garden, and some of the produce is starting to like make it onto our table now. And I saw how long it took for that thing to grow, right? And so you don't just scarf it down. Like you grew it with love, you washed it, you brought it in. It's like this connection with food. And if you're just eating garbage food wrapped in some wrapper that you're just, chugging, just chomping down while you're driving to your next thing, yeah, it's easy to eat that fast because it's not actually food. So it's like what you're saying applies to not just how you rest and digest. It also makes you wake up as you're slowing down to like look at what's on your fork and be like, what the hell is this? Why am I eating this? Yeah. It's like a full circle conversation. I love it.
Yeah. Most forms of intelligence require slow. If you want to become more intellectually intelligent, okay, so you're going to read books, you're going to sit in class, you're going to listen, you're going to absorb. If I'm going to be emotionally intelligent, I have to listen to your feelings. I have to listen to my feelings. I have to create space. I have to make connections. If I want to have natural intelligence in the natural world, I have to go out in nature. I have to watch. I have to observe. So what happens is we eat fast. We live fast. We eat fast. We call it fast food. Taste is an intelligence. We call it a sense, but it's a brilliant intelligence. There's a large amount of brain tissue devoted to taste and smell. It's a brilliant intelligence. What does an animal do? What does your dog do? What does a cat do? You throw something on the floor, they smell it, they put their tongue on it once, they know if this is something I'm going to do. Animals in nature, they taste it once, they generally know. Usually they're pretty smart about things. When we eat fast, we don't notice, and the intelligence called taste can't do its thing. When you put people on a cleanse, and you put them on a real cleanse where they're slowing down, they're in a beautiful environment, they're in a healing environment, they get to sleep, they get to meditate, they get to connect. When they slow down, a lot of people will tell you, oh my God, I'm tasting my food for the first time. And then they go home after the cleanse and they try to eat the same junk that they used to eat, and they go, oh my God, this tastes terrible. Well, you just did taste bud rehab. You just woke up that intelligence because it needed certain conditions. And all of a sudden, you're not numb anymore. Speed in the wrong conditions makes us numb. Slow helps us feel more. When it comes to eating, when it comes to learning, when it comes to sex, when it comes to touch, when it comes to anything, slow is a great strategy. Very underrated.
Oh, I love it.
This is such good stuff. Mark, I feel like we could probably talk to you another few hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. And I want to make sure that our listeners understand the best way to learn more about your crucial, vital, thrilling work. And I also hope to hear a little bit from you about what you're most excited about right now in terms of your own learning and evolution.
Beautiful question. So in terms of the connecting in, psychologyofeating.com. Yeah, if any of this inspires you, psychologyofeating.com. That's the website for my kind of baby, the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. It's been around, 8-9 years now. We do all kinds of good things, programs for professionals, for the public, tons of free content, videos, blogs. My books are listed there. People can check that out. So there's tremendous amount of resource, psychologyofeating.com. Great way to plug in, get on our email list, a lot of good stuff. For me, what I'm excited about is the beautiful connection between who we are personally and how that translates to who we can become metabolically. You know, there's all this fascinating information on here's the nutrients to take, here's the supplements, great herbs, great practices to do to increase my health. And I love that stuff. I'm a junkie for that. And I also am working off of a formula right now. I've been working off this formula for many years, but I finally articulated it. So here's my formula that I'm playing with in life. And it's personal power equals metabolic power. Personal power equals metabolic power, meaning that as I become the person that I'm meant to be, as I fulfill my universal potential, my God-given potential, as I become the person I'm meant to be in character, in my heart, in love, in the work I'm supposed to do in this world, the highest expression of me, that gives my body the best chance to reach its metabolic potential. So in other words, what I'm postulating is, yeah, the body has a metabolic potential that you could just help fulfill with just good nutrition and good health practices alone, but there's a level that we can't reach with the body unless we've reached a similar level in our own evolution, in our own consciousness, in fulfilling our own personal potential, which is kind of what the alchemists were doing way back then. They said, wait a second, yeah, there's all these things you do in the laboratory to try to make lead into gold, but the alchemist himself, herself, had to raise up their own impurities and look at their own shadow, look at their own stuff, and find their trajectory in order to take a base metal and turn it into something gold. So I think there's a secret in there somewhere. So that's what I'm playing with.
Oh my God, we got an alchemist on the show. I love it.
Yay!
Yes, so the stone is within. We should do a whole separate call just on that. Okay, so we're totally out of time. Man, we love you. Thank you so much for your time. And guys and gals, if you're listening and loving him up, go straight to his website and check out what they're doing, because it's powerful, powerful stuff. Mark, David, thank you so much.
Thank you, my friends. So wonderful. Sarah, Pedram, love you guys. Keep up the great work.
Love you, Mark. Okay, everybody, psychologyofeating.com. You need to follow this guy. Go get on his list. Thank you for joining us today. Remember, if you have comments, go to facebook.com/thehealthbridge. We would love to hear about your thoughts and reflections after this important conversation with Mark David. Thank you, Mark. Bye, Pedram.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.